After years of trying, I finally made a good contamination deck. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher aka ThrabenU here for another legacy video, and today Simone has asked me to play Contamination, which is a similar effect to Blood Moon. During your upkeep, you can either sacrifice a creature or sacrifice Contamination, and whenever a land is tapped for mana, it produces black instead of its normal type and amount. So this card is usually oversimplified to being Black Blood Moon, but this isn't actually true. What Blood Moon does is turn non-basic lands into mountains, and this is going to remove all of the other abilities that they have. Whereas Contamination does not do that. It just changes the color of mana that you produce. So practically what this means is with a Blood Moon in play, Urza's Saga goes directly to your graveyard, as it never has the lore counters that it needs to survive. Whereas with a Contamination in play, you have an Urza's Saga that makes black instead of colorless and can still activate its activated abilities. So Contamination has notable downsides compared to Blood Moon. Not only do you need to sacrifice a creature every turn, but also it doesn't necessarily stop all the cool things that your opponent's lands can do. But our ritual doesn't just cast Blood Moon on its own, now does it? So we're going to accept that weakness, move on, and try to see what we can do. We're going to be playing cards like Bitterblossom and Dreadhorde Invasion that allow us to make a creature every turn to go and sustain our Contamination. However, there is a problem with this in that this just keeps parity. And by that, I mean Dreadhorde Invasion with a Contamination does not win you the game. It just locks your opponent out of the game because you have to sacrifice the creature every single turn. So we're going to need to have a win condition in play prior to casting Contamination. Otherwise, we're just using Contamination to buy time. A quick note here. This card amasses, which is going to work with our friend Orcish Bowmasters, which is obviously going to be in this deck because we're playing black. Now, Simone's other idea was to use Mirrex to go and create a token every single turn that can sustain the Contamination as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at the deck list that we've put together here. Now, today's video is sponsored by both Moxfield.com as well as Cool Stuff Inc. And remember, if you need any paper cards, check out Cool Stuff Inc. and use promo code ThrabenU to save 5% on your order. Okay, so I have made very few changes to Simone's original deck list, but the big thing that I did add was this troll. This does three things for the deck. Number one, since it has swamp cycling, it allows you to lower your land count. Number two, it's a black card that can be imprinted under Chrome Mox. And number three, it's a win condition that can come down before Contamination. So in theory, I could on turn one do something like Swamp, Dark Ritual, Swamp Cycle, Reanimate. And on turn two, maybe we have a Chrome Mox, I can drop a Contamination. And instead of using Contamination as a prison piece, we can use it as a tempo piece. And we can keep Contamination around for a turn or two, where every one of those turns translates to 6 damage. I think that's considerably stronger than trying to build the game around locking the opponent out forever, because it's really hard to do that. I do still have some concerns about the deck list, namely that these Mono Black decks are traditionally very rough on their life total, and this one is going to make it even worse than normal with cards like Bitterblossom and Dreadhorde Invasion. As a secondary problem, many of our things are going to die to opposing Orcish Bowmasters, and that's not necessarily the best. It's a thing that can happen, and we're going to have to watch out for it. Hopefully our copies of Shoulder the Apocalypse will help out with the life loss problem. As far as the sideboard goes, it's unexciting. It is traditional mono black stuff in some pretty normal numbers. So that being said, let's battle. Hey, Phil from the future here. This is a fantastic league. This is one of those ones where I recommend watching all the rounds, but if you're in a time crunch, round 5 is particularly absurd, and I recommend that one most highly. Enjoy the show. All right, we have kept a hand that has a Contamination as well as a Bitterblossom and a Mirrex, so we have some ways to potentially lock our opponent out of the game a little bit later on. All right, so I've got some choices. If I want the Bitterblossom to do some heavy lifting, I just take Prismatic Ending, which I think is what I am going to do. So my goal in this game is going to be resolve Bitterblossom, cast Sheoldred. If Sheoldred resolves the following turn, I go for Contamination as a way to lock my opponent out of the game. And Contamination plus Sheoldred and Bitterblossom, I don't necessarily want to call it a deterministic kill, because, you know, it takes a while and weird things can happen. It's Legacy. Alright, that is no shuffle. Let's go ahead and drop our Bitterblossom. A quick note, Mirrex has a little bit of a strange ability. On the turn that you play it, it does tap for mana of any color, so just in case you see... Oh, that is exactly the card that I did not want my opponent to have. That is unfortunate for us. My hand has become much worse because I can't just, like, play out a Contamination unless I want it to just be a one-turn sort of stopgap. So I might be doing nothing on my turn 3. It just costs too much to activate right now. Alright. Okay, cool. They just fetched... Oh, excuse me. They just fetched around Opposition Agent there is what happened. Alright. So, let us cast a Dark Ritual here. And I'm going to go for the Sheoldred, and then next turn I will go for Contamination, assuming Sheoldred is still around. Notably, my opponent has fewer cards in library than I do. I might just deck them out. Alright, take your life loss. Not anymore. My Sheoldred gets bounced out of play. It's fine. Like, I've got the 4th land to recast it, and then we'll do the whole Contamination thing. I think I just use my mana efficiently here and recast the Sheoldred, because there's a good chance I can cast both Dreadhorde Invasion and Contamination on my next turn. Ooh. My opponent has had some very good draws here that have dodged... Sorry. Without having cantrips, my opponent has ended up with Force of Will and Swords to Plowshares, kind of exactly the cards they need to get through the situation that I put them in. Alright, Jeskai confirmed. I mean, I guess I'm casting my spells. Let's cast Dreadhorde Invasion, and then I'll cast this Contamination. Can't catch a break here. Alright, the Teferi pluses. Alright, my opponent's got a land now. So for the first time, I'm going to actually get to make some progress on the Teferi. Alright. So I will begin making creatures. Playing... I have to play this at sorcery speed if I want to play this. I believe I do want to play this. I want to punish cantrips here. And I want to keep Teferi from being able to bounce my stuff out of play. So we ping Teferi, and we amass onto the army token here. Again, we're 1 off from activating this. Alright, the Teferi pluses, and we'll see what happens beyond this. It is a Narset, which notably does not draw the card. They found Swords to Plowshares, which is super annoying. Because I'm going to amass onto this, and my opponent will be able to Swords to Plowshares this. So we are going to send everything at Teferi here. And then my opponent will probably Swords to Plowshares the token. Oh, they are letting the Teferi die. I guess they really want to remove Bowmasters. I don't think I Swamp Cycle this. I am 1 land away from just hard casting a 6/5. That's hard to block. I think I am good with this. And I will just use my mana this turn to Mirrex. Alright, they are going to take out the Bowmasters. I can produce 2 creatures every turn without using any of my cards in hand. Oh, fuck. God damn it. That's so upsetting. Yep. My opponent attacks with 2 of those to guarantee that they can take the Monarch. That's happening. I guess they only need to attack with 1, right? This can't block. So I think that draw has solidified my opponent's win. We'll see if I'm wrong. The troll can still do some cool things. So, like, that's something to keep in mind. That's cruel. Would my opponent double trade? They would probably double trade. I might want to double trade, though, so that my opponent cannot triple block this troll in the future. Let's send this at their face and see how they react. That's fine. Again, I think the Monarch just wins them this game from here. My opponent has had the perfects this game. I'm not gonna lie. F. Yeah. Perfects confirmed. This Narset makes this one-sided. Yeah. I have to pass the turn here. My opponent has 7 cards in hand to my 1, which is essentially a dead card. I think I am going to concede here. I think this game is far enough gone that it's not worth my time anymore. But that was pretty frustrating. Sheoldred's Edict is a sacrifice for a creature or planeswalker. I probably want to be playing some number of those. I have to decide whether or not I want to play the Contamination Lockout. I think the plan with these tokens is supposed to be attack rather than sacrifice them. Like, I think I need these slots to board in additional bodies, because that's what this game needs to be about, is putting bodies into play that my opponent has trouble answering. At the same time, there is also something being said about trying to just cheese a win. I think I want the extra bodies here. I still think I want Thoughtseize to try to punch the way through the early turns, because it makes a lot of the times where I go in on a troll significantly better. This is fine. This hand needs more mana. I probably save Grief to hardcast Grief unless my opponent just has something absolutely horrifying in their opening hand. Like, I just kind of assume that this matchup will end up going long in some capacity. So I can know exactly what my opponent's hand is with the greatest degree of certainty if I take the Ponder. Never taking Spell Pierce. I think I'm going to take the Ponder and just have the fullest control over my opponent's hand. Just let them Swords to Plowshares or Prismatic Ending the Bowmasters and pave the way for the 4-drops to be good later on. This is exactly the sort of thing that I'm looking for. They played another Prismatic Vista over the Flooded Strand that I knew about. So I am going to play this here. I know about both Swords to Plowshares and Prismatic Ending. That's all fine. I want to use my mana here in case I draw one of my good 2-drops or Opposition Agent or whatever. Like, I can keep holding if I'd like, and it's somewhat free to do so, but I miss out on so much. You're in the wrong zone, bud. Anyway, I miss out on so much in some cases if I don't go ahead and play that. And now I have Sheoldred's Edict up. Or if my opponent has a Narset or just a Monastery Mentor that they hard play out. That did not happen. Let's go ahead and give a little love tap here. Opponent goes to 15. I think I played Grief before Sheoldred. Opponent has had a few turns to draw removal spells, planeswalkers. Okay, they're going for a Brainstorm here. They'll just hide their best card, and that's fine. Oh, wow, the Grief ate a Force of Will. which I'm going to view as concerning for me rather than good for me. My opponent had the opportunity to brainstorm, hide their best cards, just let me take something random, and then said no. The second brainstorm is follow-up. I wonder if it's just a 3-2 body they can't handle, like they don't have spot removal or something. Because it feels weird to fight that much over a grief and then not just slam something fucking crazy. So maybe the body is just a problem here. Alright. Play the little orc that could. It goes to 12. Let's drop a Sheoldred. If Sheoldred gets countered, I can use Reanimate on Sheoldred. Oh, Sheoldred didn't get countered. All in? I thought for sure Sheoldred was going to get countered. I know the Spell Pierce is gone. It was pitched to Force of Will. Hull Breacher, sure. Grief hits that. Prismatic Ending. And hopefully sans something like a Terminus happening. We're good from here. So that Ponder will trigger Sheoldred, which is incredibly relevant given my opponent's current life total. And I have to decide whether or not casting Sheoldred's Edict right now is worth it. I think I'm going to say that it is. The opponent sacrifices a non-token creature. Alright, and my opponent has conceded there. Now, I obviously can't see their hand. That whole grief situation felt weird to me. So, when I'm on the draw, do I want to change anything? Like, I could go down a Dark Ritual if I wanted to get another opposition agent in the deck. I don't really hate that. Is it better to go down a Reanimate? My opponent's removal exile, so it's only the counter spells. I don't know, reanimating the troll and grief is still really important. Alright. How do I feel about this extremely fair hand? I feel pretty medium about it. That said, I'm not really sure that I'm supposed to mulligan it. Like, I just have a chain of 3 threats plus a little bit of extra endgame gas with the Mirrex. I think it's fine. I don't think it's any better than fine. But in cutting a Dark Ritual, I took away some of my explosive speed so that I would be a little bit more threat dense as the game goes on. That feels weird in terms of sequencing to me. Maybe that's just a commitment to I am never going to fetch off this Ponder, but I like leaving myself with the option. Troll's okay. Not what I'm looking for right now, but it's okay. This probably just eats a Prismatic Ending. Oh, it eats a Force of Negation. That's fine. I'm not using Grief to attempt to just throw that through. Alright, here's a fetch around Opposition Agent, and we'll see if my opponent plays one of their 3-mana Planeswalkers here. Oh, no, they do not. They just go for the Monarch, which is obviously quite good. It now makes 2 for 1-ing myself. Grief a little rough. Okay, so I'm in a bad spot. I think I am supposed to play Grief and take a card out of their hand, like try to take a removal spell so that I can get through with Grief next turn and then Sheoldred's Edict this token. I think that's where I'm at. I believe that means imprinting the Troll here. And let's see if this works. Double removals. Fuck. Okay. God damn it. All right. Well, I'll take one. All right. I had to step away for just a moment, but we're back. This is an incredible uphill battle here because, like, my opponent is just going to have a pile of removal and counter spells that are going to come off the top of their deck. So, like, fighting through the things on top of their library is bad enough as is, and it's just going to get worse for me from here. My opponent remembers to fetch around Opposition Agent, which is good because I have it. So we'll see if we can set up an interesting situation here. It's just so So tough right now. Like, my opponent has white. They also presumably have Force of Will plus blue card. Alright. They're just going to hold back at their end step. My plan is to flash this in, and then flash in Orcish Bowmasters. I assume one of these eats a counterspell, and one of these eats a Source of Plowshares, and like my opponent just moves on with their life. That is indeed what happens. And unfortunately, like, if we left my opponent with one more Source of Plowshares, that also just answers this same situation. Reanimate is cool. Why don't you sacrifice a creature token, friend? Here's our window. No. Yep. So, now, unfortunately, we just kind of have to throw this on the table at sorcery speed. It does hit play. My opponent has more card draws coming. Sorcery speed things like Prismatic Ending are going to answer this. There's not many pieces. There's not many actual like Swords to Plowshares remaining in their deck, which is nice. I'll ping my opponent here. On the attack, I do have things like Hull Breacher to think about. Oh, cool. That's actually very good. This lets me know how many creatures I need to attack with to attempt to take the Monarch. It is the Hull Breacher, so I have attack with both of my creatures if I want to. Yeah, so this ends the turn, so it doesn't do cool Orcish Bowmaster things. Mirrex tokens can't block. The Supreme Verdict to me feels more beatable than a fresh 7 for my opponent. I'm going to take the Day's Undoing. Or sorry, I am going to take the... Yes, I'm going to take the Day's Undoing, leaving them with the Supreme Verdict. Alright. Yeah, so they are going to let me very, very, very temporarily take the Monarch. I get to draw an extra card. Or sorry, they get a treasure token. So, opponent's plan is to attack and then cast Supreme Verdict. I think I just chump block here. It's a little weird. This leaves my opponent with extra treasures, but it feels like life total is very relevant here, and I can probably still force the Supreme Verdict some portion of the time anyway. This is annoying, though. Yep. I can, in theory, kill this Teferi, and if I draw a removal spell for the Hull Breacher, I'm in a very, very, very good position. Critter. There's only one Source of Plowshares left, so like instant speed removal is not a thing that is going to be around for very long. Alright, get in there on Teferi. He's dead. We give my opponent extra treasures. Again, though, I don't necessarily know that mana is the bottleneck. The only way these treasures really, really matter is if 4th Aerlingus happens. Which my opponent has Mystic Sanctuary for it. Which I think means I'm just dead. I just can't beat this card. I will concede. GG's. Today's video is sponsored by moxfield.com, which is an absolutely awesome place to keep all of your deck lists. I keep all of my personal deck lists there as well, in addition to all of the stuff that I do for the stream. And in the future, they're going to have a social media site on here too. So if you're worried about other certain websites dying, maybe join Moxfield, put your deck lists up there, and in the future, you'll be there for social media stuff too. All right, our hand is going to begin with Dark Ritual, Swamp Cycle, Reanimate around Days. Ooh, that's not bad. So, Dark Ritual, Swamp Cycle, get a Swamp, Reanimate the Troll. I am at 14, but this is a very massive clock that is extremely difficult for my opponent to answer. Like, it doesn't eat Snuff Out, it doesn't eat Lightning Bolt, and can only be blocked by 3 or more creatures. These currently don't have any form of evasion. So let's go ahead and get on in there. Alright, my opponent Goes down on life. I think I cast a Sheoldred's Edict now. It's possible their upkeep is better. I don't think I Chromox Reanimate to play around days. I do it in their upkeep. Opponent sacrifices a non-token creature. Alright, one down. The sort of interesting thing here is that if my opponent surveils a reasonable creature into their graveyard, I will just reanimate that and speed up my clock. I honestly might even just reanimate Dragon Rage Channeler on its own as a way to take a card type out of graveyard. Because, like, that difference of 1 point of damage does certainly matter. Yeah, but you have to attack. Not that you can block anyway. If I play Chrome Mox and Imprint Reanimate, I have a 2-turn clock instead of a 3-turn clock, but that also, in theory, happens with a Dragon Rage Channeler. So I think I am just going to go with Reanimate this turn, as that does, in theory, end up saving me life. Although it is vulnerable to counterspells. I don't really think my opponent has counterspells, though. Like, or if they do, they drew it in the last turn cycle. Alright, fantastic. I could Chrome Mox to Surveil. Don't think I am going to just do that here. Maybe I should, and just Surveil looking for a removal spell in case Murktide Regent comes down. But I'd like... Well, I guess with only 2 types in there, I can never turn this into something that can't block. Yes, you may absolutely Thoughtseize me. Yeah, there's a Snuff Out, excuse me, that we were avoiding by having a black creature. And Murktide Regent is not a 3rd blocker. The Thoughtseize puts them into lethal range, where the troll gets to just crash through and kill them. I have no reason to block that I can think of. In case this is some weird trap, I'm just going to take the 1 point of damage. Yep. I'm fine showing my opponent a grief before I do anything else. Force of Will and Lightning Bolt. Sure. I'll take a Lightning Bolt and attack my opponent for lethal. Boop. Illegal block. Alright, my opponent realizes what's up and concedes. So I would like extra removal spell against my opponent's deck. Leylines are playable. I'm very worried about this matchup. I have a lot of life loss and only Sheoldred to gain life. I'm always boarding out contaminations. I just don't think after my opponent hits me for some amount of damage in the mid game that I can hold out long enough with these cards and contamination. Like, I think contaminations become additional removal spells, and then I have to think if I want to play Leyline of the Void. I don't think I do. It's possible I have too much life loss in the deck, but I kind of feel like if I want to pick my spot with like Bowmasters and Sheoldreds and stuff, that I'm going to need Thoughtseizes to clear the way. It's possible that just opening up on one of these is quite strong, and I just have to let stuff get countered. But like Thoughtseize clearing the way for a troll was very good, for example. I have Helm combo. I think it's a no-brainer to play the ley lines, and I think it's less clear when I don't have Helm combo. It's fine. It's not exciting, but it's fine. It has 2 or 3 pieces of removal, depending on whether or not this needs to be a land. I think I am okay keeping this, but I think I play Mirrex on turn 1 a good portion of the time, so that if my opponent wastelands me, they're wastelanding a land that doesn't actually produce black, because the toxic creature can't block. All right, take your card for Bauble. I do think I want a shot at taking my opponent's threat here. All right, let's Thoughtseize. Oh, I have gotten no Surd. I did take a Murktide Regent, though, which is like the caliber of card that I certainly would have gone for. Oh, no. So, my opponent is missing land drops here. I think I just use this as an opportunity to play a tapped land and pass the turn. Alright, there is the second land. Am I fine with spells getting dazed? Yes, I don't think I want to put any of these cards under a Chrome Mox. So let's cast a Plague Engineer. Oh wow, we're getting another Force of Will pitching a Murktide Regent. What a boon for me. Like, that probably just means my opponent has, like, Orcish Bowmasters and is... Never mind. Or maybe my opponent's hand is just very weak at this point. A Dark Ritual. My opponent has shown me that they don't have Daze. If they have Daze, it's the card that they drew for their last turn. I think I just Chrome Mox accordingly and cast the Sheoldred into a Daze. It obviously sucks if my opponent drew Daze that turn, but otherwise this is just a much better use of my resources long term. That is a third Force of Will and a third Murktide Regent. This is probably a scary spot for my opponent. Like, some of their best threats are now gone. I imagine I lose Mirrex here. Yep. There's already a really good reanimation target in play, so I am fine just swamp cycling this to make my land drop. Like, I have many 4-drops in my deck. Surgical Extraction on the Troll is acceptable. I am unsure if you use the Surgical with that timing. Like, I'm not at a point where I can hard cast one yet. I guess Ancient Tomb could happen. My opponent doesn't know that I don't have Ancient Tomb. Alright, they have just fetched. Not technically around an opposition agent, but they're just not giving me another draw towards it. I'm not interested in casting this card here. Your Delver's fine. I think I even take a draw to see if I draw Plague Engineer. I'm so good at Magic. Do I cast Thoughtseize first? No. Cast Plague Engineer. Go ahead and put it on human and nuke that card. I don't think I cast Thoughtseize. Like, I don't care if my opponent has Lightning Bolt as their last card. Like, I think it's more important for me to be able to Thoughtseize before an absolutely critical must-resolve card. I don't currently have one of those. Thoughtseize also just, like, misses a good portion of the time. Yeah, I'm just gonna hold. That is fine. Wasteland is fine. Yeah, so if I played Thoughtseize, it would have missed. Your opponent sacrifices a non-token creature. Get out Dragon Rage Channeler. So this would be a fantastic time to draw something like a Sheoldred or a Bitterblossom that can spiral the game out of control. I'd say that counts. I'm just gonna hold this. Interesting. I'm gonna hold that. I think I'm just in the situation where I can play with infinite patience. Delver resolves. So we'll play Bowmasters. It can't be countered currently. I will ping that Delver. If my opponent responds with a Bowmasters of their own as their last card. Negative. I am going to Thoughtseize in this spot right here before I play this Sheoldred. Nice. Well, I guess not necessarily nice, because, like, I would have just played around that. But I imagine at this point, with Bowmasters and Sheoldred both in play, punishing draws, and 3 of my opponent's 4 Murktide Regents in exile, while I also just have 2 Sheoldred's Edicts for the final Murktide Regent, we just game over. Like, this is so very much damage. Yep. 4, 5, 6. 6 versus 7 damage doesn't really matter. I'll just hold the other Bowmasters in case my opponent has something absolutely wild like a Damnation. Again, I'm not really expecting that, but seems pretty free to play around. All right, we bullied Delver. That game there was an impressive show for the power level of this deck. But, like, let's say that with the caveat that Contamination doesn't necessarily feel good when such a huge portion of the format is also just on, like, Bowmasters and Plague Engineers. So there's that. All right. My hand's a keep. We'll Grief, pitch a Contamination, reanimate it, and then follow up with a Bitterblossom. This could be a game where Contamination actually does some work, assuming that things go well. Ooh. All right. So Grief. Pitch Contamination. Ooh, my opponent gets a Brainstorm, so they will get to hide their 2 best cards on top. Alright, we're resolving. Understood. I get 2 of these. I'm probably going to take the Omniscience and the Intuition and leave my opponent with the Preordain. So let's just dismiss these so I get the cards fresh. Alright, take Intuition. And this game is looking pretty good. Alright, so they took another card back. They took a land, interestingly. Mirrex is fine. Let's battle. And hit my opponent for 17. I believe I lead on Bitterblossom. Bitterblossom goes wide in a way that Dreadhorde Invasion does not. And going wide can be relevant for things like an Emrakul Annihilator trigger. I might just die to sneak attack. Like, that's very much a thing that can happen. So we will probably be going for the Contamination this turn. Like, I have the Grief in play already. So this is my combo kill. Let's make a green mana. Note that my opponent does have Lotus Petal, which can get them out of this situation. Hell yeah. I think that's technically an early concession, but I don't know how bad their hand is. Alright, what do we have for Show and Tell? I have Opposition Agents, which... actually, does that help with Intuition? You control your opponents while they're searching their libraries. Yes, it targets me, they search. Yeah, so that's fine. I'll play Sheoldred's Edict. At this time, I do not know whether or not they play Sneak Attack. I'm actually a little unsure which of my cards are bad. I'm not sure that it's Contamination. Like... maybe I don't keep Contamination on the draw, and I play it when I'm on the play, just because it's easier for my opponent to go under me with Show and Tell. I also potentially want Sheoldred's Edict as well. Probably just like cutting one of these. I don't need to be maxed out on these if I'm not playing Contamination. That makes sense to me. And I'm not going to play Needle as of right now. Yes. This is going to start out as Grief pitching Sheoldred, I think. Sheoldred is just so much mana unless I specifically rip Dark Ritual. Veil of Summer would be incredibly awkward here. Force of Will. Yes. What did that pitch? Pitching Cunning Wish. I think I just go again and then reanimate. Let's Grief pitch Opposition Agent just because it costs more mana. I will grab a Show and Tell. I will reanimate one of those Griefs. I'll take your Omniscience, leaving you with only a Misty Rainforest in play. Or sorry, in hand. That was good. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, I'm keeping a hand that deploys a Sheoldred on turn 2 and gets vastly improved by a Reanimate. Yeah, this is just gonna be Swamp Pass. I might not actually Sheoldred on turn 2. I might just play a Dreadhorde Invasion. Like, I'd really prefer to not get 2 for 1 by a Daze. Alright, there's the fetch land. Doing this can be a little awkward because some portion of the time my opponent does have Reanimate in their own deck over there. But let's just go ahead and play this spell. It hit play after a long think, so I think my evaluation that my opponent does indeed have a counterspell is accurate. We'll maybe try to sandbag the Sheoldred for a little while. Ooh, it is Jeskai instead. Finding Narset. Sure. And a Brainstorm. That probably means that I take this turn to play the Sheoldred. Probably need to be less concerned about Wasteland now. So do I Chrome Mox Dark Ritual and play into Daze? After seeing Narset, probably. I don't think my opponent's counterspell is Daze. I think it will probably be Force of Will. Let's see if I'm right or wrong. Or they just have Swords to Plowshares, which I imagine is what's happening in the upkeep here. Yep, that's fine. All right. Narset gets to dig. A Prismatic Ending, which my opponent cannot cast this turn, which I suppose is good for me. Interesting, my opponent played Island or playing Ponder. All right, cool. I will take a turn off to kill Narset. Like, that's totally fine. I don't want to get hit by Daze Undoing nonsense later. I don't know for sure that it's in my opponent's deck, but it's relatively free to play around here. So it costs me 2 to play Dreadhorde Invasion, and then I don't have enough to activate Mirrex afterwards. I think I am going to just play this tapped. Maybe not. I can still do a 2-drop plus activate Mirrex next turn. I don't know whether my opponent has like Mentors or 4th Airlingas. Ooh, Dress Down. Or what as of right now. I'm about to lose this to Prismatic Ending, and then I'll have a 2-2 on board and no gas afterwards. The Mirrex technically helps a bit, but it is not my ideal. Okay, yep, there it goes. Dark Ritual is not what I want to see. I think I am going to hold this as a spell. I'm unsure whether that's correct. It can hit a Hull Breacher, a Mentor. I guess Stoneforge Mystic is technically possible. I'm a little surprised to see that cycled there. No, this is to shuffle the Brainstorm. Never mind, I'm not surprised anymore. But we're reaching that point in the game where the draw 3 is strong. My opponent wants to play around Bowmasters though, which is like totally legit. Yeah, we've already determined that I do not beat this card. Hopefully my opponent just attacks with 1. F. Well, I guess I take that damage. All right. The Monarch game has been initiated. However, am I casting this now or am I making a creature now? I think I cast it now before they have another card in hand. It's just so important. That just moved. I'm just going to make sure I've clicked on the correct thing. This token. All right. Let's blow up that token. Yuck. Okay. Then I now need to do this and turn my Dark Ritual into a 1/1 so I can at least contest the Monarch game. But that's just so incredibly savage. All right. I require this extra card. Like, it is worth me throwing away a Might or losing the 2/2, whichever way, to go and get the extra card. Yeah, that's fine. All right. See how good this extra card is. That is a reasonable card. I'm not unhappy about that. Yep. Yep, unfortunately, I can't punish that attack. These don't block. Even if they did, trample's a thing. Bleh. Get to make 1 of these this turn. If I hit another land, I start making 2 per turn cycle. But like, when we think about it in terms of mana investment, the 4th Airlingas just did such an incredible amount of work. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1 Swords to Plowshares used, no Teferis used. This is my turn. All right, it's in play. We're chilling in a way that's not great for me. The Troll maybe clears the Human Mites out of the way. And I'm assuming this is a fair dress down, not I'm randomly playing Phyrexian Dreadnought dress down. I don't think you need Dreadnought if you're playing this. There's a fetch to clear that. Narset gets to dig for a new swords. Negative, it did reveal a dress down, which could make my opponent just chump block with these. Oh, nice, another troll. If I attack with both of these, my opponent just casts dress down, blocks. That's not great for me. I think I'm fine trading the troll for all 3 of these and then just casting a new troll. Okay, they're going to go for the dress down anyway to just chump block. It's now very awkward for me because I would love to cast Grief because I would love to look for Supreme Verdict specifically in my opponent's hand, but I can't do that because Dress Down. So that means making myself worse against the Supreme Verdict that I'm already worried about. Such is life, you know? But this is such an absurd amount of pressure that cards not named Supreme Verdict are not a big deal. By playing out both of these. Ponder's not Supreme Verdict, but it does get 4 looks at 1. This is probably indicative that Supreme Verdict is about to happen. If I block, a Lightning Bolt can kill a Troll. I think I'm just going to give my opponent 2 points of damage and not open up Bolt to killing Troll. Yep. I mean, I knew exactly what beat me. Does this just mill my opponent out? Like, cast Grief, take something out of their hand, play Contamination, hold Contamination with Mirrex. They're at 27 cards, drawing 2 a turn. Feels like this is a win. Force of Will, pitching Force of Negation. Let's see if it works. I think my opponent's dead. It's sinking in. My opponent has tapped and untapped their lands. Not even your basics are safe from me. Yeah. So they draw a card. I make a critter. I sacrifice my critter. I don't want to play this. Because I just had, like, this kills me before my opponent. I guess the lifelink eventually happens, but I don't think I need to cast any spells. Alright. I am going to fast forward this game. Because I think it's over, but I think it takes 10 minutes for it to be over. Alright, I sent my opponent a message, and after tapping their lands for black again, they did concede. So is Contamination our Hail Mary play for bad matchups? Like, just get ahead on board, slam the Contamination, and be Gucci? Planeswalkers are a bit of a problem. And I guess something like... I don't know, they can't even get the blue mana for Shark Typhoon. Yeah, but these are the cards that I can think about. Last time around, I boarded out Contaminations. After seeing it this game, I don't think I do. I wanted to become more threat dense, but I guess this does count as a threat. I still think I need these. Maybe I dubiously cut a little bit of mana, assuming that the game does go long. My hand is certainly a keep. I do have to decide whether or not it's going to be worth it for me to put a Troll into play on turn 1 versus a Swords to Plowshares deck and give up a card to Chromox. Given that I've drawn a Sheoldred, I am probably always going to Chromox. So I'm going to put a Sheoldred's Edict under Chromox here. We'll swap cycle our good friend. Grab the Swamp. And attempt Reanimate. Ooh, we are getting some action. Oh, no, it's just a Brainstorm. That's fine. It was good enough to get Force of Will. Pitching a Supreme Verdict. I'm very happy to see that. All right, just land pass. Bowmasters would be a hot draw. Oh, baby. Love to see that. Ponder. Ponder for me. That's not Ponder at all. That's going to resolve. And I'll cast Bowmasters with the ability on the stack. Bam. And these are very convenient numbers here because I get to ping the Narset and then attack the Narset for lethal. Lorien revealed. Absolutely. Reanimate. I have some thinking to do now. Let's kill Narset. Given that my opponent does not have white mana, and especially does not have white mana, I'm going to drop a Sheoldred here. And really punish the cantrips. And then if some sort of removal or terminus or something happens, I can start looking at reanimating either the Troll or the Sheoldred. Ooh. Good stuff. I have a Sheoldred's Edict for if my opponent flashes in Hull Breacher, so I'm good with the attack here. Alright. My opponent is taking the damage. It seemed like they had something to play. We're going deeper. Like, my opponent can't Terminus me or Supreme Verdict me right now, so yeah. Jeez, that was an absolute beating. Alright, final round here. My opening hand doesn't really do anything. I have multiple Thought Seizes, and if my opponent is playing creatures, this hand is actually reasonable. I'm probably gonna mulligan. I don't know. Like, some portion of the time, I just get a turn 1 Grizzlebrand or equivalent. I'm gonna keep this. Like, I play Bad Swamp, Thoughtseize, Mox Contamination. Alright, what are we doing? Turn 1 initiative creature would be cool. That's less cool for me. 2 more? Yeah, but in theory, like, taking a Seasoned Dungeoneer off Thoughtseize and then reanimating it would have been incredible. So Thoughtseize is the clear name here. Have to be ahead on board, or the Contamination lock is good. So I'd probably just get rid of the Contamination, despite the fact that Thoughtseize is awkward. Maybe that's not true. Second Thoughtseize is quite bad. Yeah, but I think my opponent just making my Thoughtseize cost more wins them this game, assuming that they can drop a Seasoned Dungeoneer specifically this turn, which is, I imagine, what they kept their hand on. Yeah, so... Oh, it's an Archon of Emeria. That's super annoying. Yeah. Damn it. So, my land enters tapped, and I can't Dark Ritual into something else here. Yeah, that just savaged me. If my opponent floods out, maybe I'm okay, but outside of that happening, I imagine they've just got this one. Another Anointed Peacekeeper. Brutal. Alright, they've just continued to name Thoughtseize. That's fine. I think I'm just dead here. Yeah, like, I can't even Grief Reanimate. I'm going to cast a Grief and just see what the last card in my opponent's hand was. So, for example, it could be a red creature, and I learned that I am facing red-white initiative. It is Boromir. Sure. So I could take 8, go to 2, kind of cover the board, die to this in the air. I'm okay conceding here, especially with, like, my Dreadhorde Invasion still in play. Yeah, I think I win that game on the play. I mean, I'm in fact pretty confident that I do. Okay. So, Contamination is reasonable on the play, and probably unplayable on the draw. Do I want it this game? Like, I probably want to board in these 4 cards, and these are my easiest cuts for them. So this is probably just what I'm doing. I am going to keep the token producers because of how important they are for chump blocking and taking / holding the initiative. This is turn 1, swap cycle, turn 2, reanimate. That's fine. It's not any better than fine. I think I keep it. Problem with this hand is that, like, Anointed Peacekeeper is kind of a kick in the face if it names reanimate and makes my hand do nothing. But I'm, like, totally fine versus Archon. I have reasonable game versus Seasoned Dungeoneer. I have a couple of Death Touch creatures for later on. Alright, they are red-white. God damn it. Yeah. That is the one card I did not want my opponent to open on. It just means that my opponent gets Time Walk. And you can't give the initiative player Time Walk. Yeah. Well, that's awkward. Notably here, we are holding the basics in hand because of Archon of Emeria. Yep. Alright, I eat 3 damage. It's not that big of a deal. I get to Swamp Cycle. And just continue to hit my land drops. I'm going to need my land drops. I'm going to need Sheoldred. Dark Ritual is actually a good draw, right? Or no, it's not. Well, is putting Sheoldred into play better than Reanimate? I think so. I think just stopping the bleeding is very good in situations where my opponent does not have, like, Solitude as a follow-up. Yeah, 3-mana Reanimate is super sad, though. Caracas can also punish this play. Not Caracas. Opponent has Solitude. Or at least is playing towards Solitude, maybe more accurately. Okay, maybe they don't have Solitude. Because they would have just done it on their turn and attacked in for 6 if they had it. So do I want a Troll? I think I'm going to just attack with Sheoldred and see what my opponent wants to do about that. Like, they can double block. Nah, not the best. Yeah, okay. They are just going to take that hit. Fine, that puts them to 10. Reanimate to Troll? They almost certainly have a land in hand. Now let's just put the largest amount of pressure on their life total here. All right. So they go to 8 here, which is starting to look like spooky numbers. Okay, cool. So I am fine attacking in with both of my creatures. I have another Sheoldred. So, like, if my opponent takes 6 and goes to 2, okay, so they can now sack Boromir and give Anointed Peacekeeper indestructible. All right, they go to 2. They're dead to a Sheoldred trigger then. Game on the draw is much harder. I mean, not that game was easy, but the game on the draw is much harder. I am going to just be resubmitting as is. I'm more scared of Anointed Peacekeeper than basically any other card in their deck. This has no starting mana source. This one has to be a mulligan. This is not great, but I don't know that I want to go to 5 here. I'm going to put back a non-basic land, as I probably have 3 lands here. Oh yeah, if you just chalice me, that's great. That card does not do a lot given my hand unless I just rip Reanimate. Okay. How am I playing this? Does the Troll go under? Maybe the Troll goes under. And then I think I do this one. It's very awkward if Anointed Peacekeeper makes both of my Bowmasters cost more. But this is the thing that most quickly leads me to having a large creature that can be larger than a 3/3. Spirit Guide, 4th Aerlingas then? Yeah, I'm very bad at beating this card, as we have already established in other rounds. Alright. That's unfortunate. We're pretty good against single creatures. We'll see what we can do. The Monarch's real bad for me. Fuck this guy. I can't let both Bowmasters get locked under this. I'm gonna do this. Hanging Face, I think, makes sense. Now, my opponent needed that Spirit Guide, because this does not produce true red mana for this card. The power on board feels beatable. The extra card draw from Monarch doesn't. Alright, they've made my Bowmasters more expensive. Alright, and they're just gonna turtle up. So I'm gonna continue to ping Face here. Maybe I should have pinged a token the first time, in anticipation of the Monarch draw. Like, that's a thing. Really wanted to land there. I think I'm chilling and holding up Sheoldred's Verdict this turn. And then maybe next turn I can reach a point where I do something cool with this. Like, gain a bunch of life. That's fine. But I cast this Edict now. Sacrifice a non-token creature. please. And then Bowmasters costs less for next turn, which is super relevant. All right. So, in your face, this gets bigger. I amass. This enters tapped. I probably have to play it still. I can attack with this as a 6/6 and turn it into a 7/7. Or I can just pass the turn and have even better combat next turn. Because my opponent knows I have the Bowmaster, so it's not a trick. So I am just going to pass the turn. Sometimes I die for not taking the attack, though. Just due to another land and like another 4th Aerlingas, but I don't know that I beat that anyway. Longer term. Yeah, save my opponent a life. There's a Caves of Chaos Adventurer. So the initiative subgame also starts now. My opponent also gets a land. Alright. End of turn. I'm going to play a new Orcish Bowmasters. I am going to ping Caves of Chaos Adventurer. And I'm going to amass. Then they're going to draw. I'm going to get 2 more Orcish Bowmasters triggers. And I'm going to ping Caves of Chaos Adventurer twice to take out that creature. I have a 9/9. Oh god, it's so big. Okay. Combat. This gains lifelink. Yes, that's fine. Alright. I'm at 20. If I play Bowmasters at my opponent's end step, I can kill Archon of Emeria, which sounds kind of nice. Maybe I can't because of Forge. Maybe I just play the evasive creature here. Make it more likely that I can take Initiative and Monarch. I don't care about Containment Priest. I will be taking Swords to Plowshare. No, Chalice. I guess I will be taking Containment Priest. I'm never killing Chalice, and neither are they. Alright. Containment Priest gone. This is a very strange game. Ooh, we have forced my opponent into a scry situation, which I love to see. They did take a card. Oh no, they found their best draw. X is 4. Not dead. Like, I have a giant lifelinker from hell that gains increasing amounts of life every turn. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Okay, yeah, they're holding back. I'm going to use Bow Boy. Okay, that token moved off to the side. This is that token. I will use Bow Boy to go ahead and dome a token. This is a 12/12. Now 13/13. It will be a 14/14 attacker in combat. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So it's not dying in combat. And I can also attack with Grief. This feels illegal. Yeah, that's fine. We're good with all this. The Grief can die. I am fine with casting a Bitterblossom. I can still Orcish Bowmasters on their turn, and then I can ping the Archon of Emeria this time. From my opponent's From my opponent's perspective, this is probably a time where they want to goad Orcish Bowmasters. Yep. Alright. End step. It is I, Bow Boy. I will ping an Archon. You draw a card. I will ping an Archon. I will ping an Archon. I will hit your face. Stack clears. I have a 17/17. 18/18. Another Bitterblossom. So my 18/18 has to be blocked. I could attack with all of my Orcish Bowmasters, but I think I'll just let the one go. Like, I feel like I am attritioning this out okay. A Solitude is pretty annoying. Outside of that, I feel like I'm okay. Alright, 48 life. Cast Bitterblossom. Would you like to draw a card? Nope. That's a 4/1 that gets pinged by an Orcish Bowmaster trigger. Anointed Peacekeeper resolves. you may look at my hand. Here it is. They have named Grief, which is a reasonable name. They draw a card. I do Bowboy shenanigans. I think I will ping the skeleton and ping their face for 1. Goodbye, Skelly. Alright. I have made friends. Mirrex is totally reasonable. Hopefully this is the turn where I take the initiative, because it's kind of bad for me if I don't. My opponent needs a removal spell for the flyer or something weird like an Aven Mind Sensor that they could flash in. Alright. Up to 66 life. I become the Monarch. I take the initiative. I get a basic land. If memory serves, I played Mirrex this turn. Containment Priest is fine. Dark Ritual has no text. And my opponent gives it up. That's a 4-1 with Contamination. Let's bring that on screen. Let's celebrate this victory. I'm really happy about these results, and just brief history lesson here. A long time ago, I worked with Finn, the creator of Death and Taxes, to try and make Contamination work. And for the longest time, I tried these like Nether Shadow, Bloodghast piles, and nothing really worked. Nothing was consistent. And it may be at this point that this troll actually is the thing that kind of pushed this deck over the line. It allows you to lower your mana sources. It gives you something that you can get down that's incredibly aggressive before Contamination just happens. And now we're at the point that we might actually have enough token producers to make the Contamination work. There's a little bit of worry about just like killing yourself while you have your opponent Contamination locked, but like you can sacrifice the Contamination whenever. And if you go a handful of turn cycles where you get to cast spells and your opponents don't, like that probably favors you quite a bit. But at the same time, like let's acknowledge the power creep from the Lord of the Rings set has made Black just so much stronger. So Contamination may still just be the weakest portion of this deck, but it won me games that otherwise looked unwinnable throughout this league, and I didn't sideboard it out every round. And in the first round when I sideboarded it out, like knowing what I know now and watching how it just like smoked my control opponent, I probably should have kept it in. Like this is a 4-1, and I'm super happy with these results. So if you're rushing off to buy your copies of Contamination, check out Cool Stuff Inc. Use promo code ThrabenU to save 5% on your order, and I hope you all have a great rest of the day. See ya!